Hey there, happy day 748 of What You Up To Now. Sharon Horne-Ellstrom here, also known as Jam Grandma. Thinking about fifth wheels or spare tires today. The idiom that I discussed in my Supersize Your Business video today was about fifth wheel, the idiom fifth wheel. It's from France in the 16th century, which is way older than I actually thought it would be or thought the expression would be. I guess there have been people that feel left out and unneeded and unnecessary in situations for a long time. And I know, like everybody else, sometimes I felt like a fifth wheel or at least a third wheel. If I went to a movie with a couple of friends in college or even in high school, sometimes it felt like everybody was coupled up but me. And I know a lot of us have had that feeling, right? Been divorced for 10 years, so I've had that. I have had that feeling, but not so much. The older I get, the less it matters to me what other people think and how they treat me. It's more about how do I choose to feel given any given situation. Well, fifth wheels, of course, there's a lot of vehicles out there, right? And there are actually fifth wheelers now. They're just trailers. But back in the day when this expression came into being, you know, you had unicycles, you had tricycles, you had bicycles, you had most trucks and wagons had four wheels. And a fifth wheel, since people didn't travel such long distances, it was considered unnecessary. You didn't really need a fifth wheel. Well, when couples would go out together and double date, two couples, and they'd invite another person, that person was called the fifth wheel. They were sort of unnecessary and unneeded because everybody else was coupled up, right? And I think everybody's felt that way at a party or in a group or in a meeting or something where they're really not needed. They're not contributing much, or if they are contributing, no one's paying attention, no one's listening, and they just feel uncomfortable. I think it's more of an awkward feeling of being uncomfortable, and it's like, why am I here? Why do I even need to be here? Kind of situation more often than anything else. I've been on teams like that where somebody was so controlling that nobody else could really participate or give any input, and then that person would become resentful that nobody else was helping them. I've been in department head meetings and corporate meetings and even non-corporate, even volunteer organization meetings where I might as well have not been there because I was invisible. Anything I had to say or contribute was just totally ignored and not acknowledged. And how does that make us feel? It makes us feel really tiny and small. I've worked for bosses and people that are so controlling that they have to tell you, micromanage to the level of, why am I even here doing the job? You're doing it, or you're telling me exactly what I need to do step by step, so minutely that it's ridiculous. And we know the difference between being micromanaged and being led and being managed, right? They all feel very differently. But anything that makes us feel, awkward or unnecessary or unneeded or like we just don't matter can give us that fifth wheel feeling, or that I say third wheel because I think personally I found myself more in third wheel situations than in fifth ever. I had a roommate, she was hooked up, and then I'd go to movies and things with them, so I was like the extra person. Not that it mattered in a movie or something like that, because we're supposed to be quiet in movies. I think actually the most awkward I've felt, that I remember feeling in one of those situations, was at my daughter's wedding. My daughter got married out in out in Montana at Big Sky, and actually Moonlight Basin, which is the backside of Big Sky. And my ex-husband brought his girlfriend, and I didn't feel like a fifth wheel, but it was definitely that awkward feeling. And so I just did my own thing, which is what I would do anyway. But it was definitely weird, right? It's definitely weird. Yeah, that's all I'm going to say about that. So, is a fifth wheel really a fifth wheel, or is it more like a spare tire? I like to think that extra resources are awesome and should be utilized, and they're more like a spare tire than being unnecessary, right? If you've ever driven a trailer, or if you've ever trailered anything like a boat or canoes or stuff when you're moving, and you blow a tire and you don't have that fifth wheel, that fifth spare tire, it takes so much longer to fix the problem and the predicament that you're in than if you happen to just have a spare tire and all you have to do is change the tire. That's why cars and trucks and most vehicles nowadays are equipped with a spare tire. Even if it's that crappy little temporary tire, you still get back up and running and on the road much faster than if you have to wait for AAA or call a friend and have them come and rescue you, or whatever, a tow truck, whatever your situation to get out of that predicament and that dilemma is. It just takes a lot longer if you don't have that spare tire. So I like to think of it as a fifth wheel is not a fifth wheel, there's a spare tire. What if one person in a couple goes to the bathroom? Well, then you can fill in and talk to the person so that they're not lonely and they don't have anyone to talk to on the date or whatever the adventure is that you're going on. We'd love to know what you think about this expression. I have to admit, I have never given the fifth wheel or the third wheel this much conscious thought before. So it was kind of a fun exercise. It's kind of fun to look at things and say, well, geez, I've never thought of it that way. I've never looked at it. I've never known where it came from and how it's impacting me. And if I go back now and look at my past and think about it, I'm sure I can come up with all kinds of examples where I was the fifth wheel or the third wheel and think back to, well, how did I actually feel in that situation? How did people treat me in the situations when I felt good about it? They treated me more like a spare tire or an extra resource than in the situations where I actually felt bad about it. Because I guarantee I have a bunch of experiences in both the feeling good about it and feeling bad about it way, right? And I think the older I get, the less I would say that I can remember ever feeling bad about it, right? If somebody invites me and I'm not coupled up, I figure they're inviting me because they want me to be part of the experience, not because I have to be part of a couple or a part of a relationship thing. I do remember going on vacations with folks, yeah, but I wasn't the fifth wheel. Anyway, daughter's wedding, I definitely kind of felt a little bit like the weird fifth wheel. But everybody wasn't coupled up for that. I just had to hang out with her and her husband's younger friends and my relatives, which was awesome to me. So, have you ever felt like a fifth wheel, or do you feel like a spare tire? I think it's kind of a choice. I think I choose to be a spare tire and added resource and not feel like a fifth wheel, like I'm unneeded and unnecessary. Because guess what? All of us are needed and necessary. We all have a role and a place to fill in this world and in the universe, and especially in our lives. We are always the star of our own lives. So thinking about fifth wheels today, thinking about my next challenge. I've always got a bunch of challenges going on. I'm just finishing up auditing, and I say auditing because I didn't go all in on these people's challenges. I was just auditing and observing how other people are doing some of their challenges. Because I'm thinking about, now this is a sneak peek, I'm thinking about adding to my podcast a segment about challenges and interview people that do challenges for other people. I think that'd be kind of cool, right? To find out how people approach challenges. And I would also like to do something about the biggest challenge of your life and how people have dealt with those type of events. And maybe it's the biggest challenge of your life so far or something, because if you're still here, guarantee you're in for more challenges, you're in for more obstacles, you're in for more problems, you're in for more situations and experiences that you can't even imagine yet, that you can't even imagine right now. I'd like to start doing some interviews around that, since I'm focusing in on that, and it's really calling me. It's really interesting to me, and I get excited about it. I want to start bringing more of that into my podcast and into the interviews that I do. I like to do both video interviews and then turn them into podcasts. I've been doing that since day one, since I first started interviewing people. I always interview on video, interview live, and then I just strip out the sound and make that a podcast. Some people can't watch videos and they love just listening to the podcast. Other people, I found, rather see the people that they're listening to, that they're learning from, that and you can get so much more. And this is from a blind person. Me, I'm blind. You get so much more when you actually can see people and interact with them. I hate talking on the phone because I'm a visual person, and there's nothing worse than being a visual person that is blind, right? Legally blind. But I tend to be a visual person, so I love doing Zoom calls, Facebook calls, and things like that over telephone calls. I, even with super limited vision, prefer to see people's body language, the frame of them, than just talking on the phone. It's so easy to get misunderstood and misinterpret things when you're just hearing people's voices and the inflection in them, because sometimes I sound way harsher than I mean to. I've gotten that feedback from my family and kids especially. They're like, geez, Mom, why are you yelling? I'm like, you guys, really? This sounds like yelling? You've never heard me yell. If you hear me yell, this is not yelling. This is just excitedly expressing my opinion. So working on that. Today's fun challenge was all about foods you hate, things that you just think are icky and shouldn't have any reason to exist. Now, I thought it was interesting because I'm sure there's so many foods and things that people eat that I've never experienced. But even some of the things that I just don't have them around me. If it's something I don't like, I just don't get it. I don't bring it into my household. I remember for a couple of decades, there was no nut butter or peanut butter in my house because my kids didn't like it. And I didn't like it for a bunch of years. For so many years, I ate it as a child, and I got sick of it. I got sick of like peanut butter and ham and cheese sandwiches. Growing up, we always had ham and cheese sandwiches in the fridge. If you were hungry, you could always make a ham and cheese sandwich. If you were hungry, you could always make a peanut butter sandwich. Nobody was ever going to go hungry. And my mom had huge pantries full of food. You could cook and make anything you wanted just by, you would say, okay, and you could just pull out ingredients and make whatever you want. And that's how I learned how to cook. I like to keep my pantry the same way. But I got sick of it. So my kids, I never had peanut butter in the house because I didn't like it, and so they didn't like it. I do remember one time, they were in grade school. They went to the Catholic school, and I made them peanut butter sandwiches. And since they went to private school, I had to drive them to and from school every day. So I went to pick them up from school, and they were both livid. They would not talk to me because I had the audacity to make and put peanut butter sandwiches in their lunch. And they thought that was child abuse, and shame on me for ever thinking that they would eat peanut butter sandwiches. My daughter to this day doesn't like peanuts or peanut butter. I think my son probably eats some peanut butter, but not very much. And me, I love nut butters now. I like to grind them up in the NutriBullet myself and make my own nut butters. Just get the nuts and then grind them up. Nothing better than fresh, delicious, homemade nut butter. And it's super easy to do. I always thought, oh, you got to go buy it and you get that separated nut stuff out. And you don't have to. You can make it at home. And me, I have to watch sodium, so I can just get the low salt or no salt nuts and grind them up, and it makes really delicious nut butter spreads. It's kind of fun to do stuff like that. It's funny. I had a bunch of nuts one time, and I thought, I wonder how they make peanut butter. And so I threw them in my NutriBullet, and all of a sudden I had this amazing mixture of nut butter that was really, really good. So you can always get creative with stuff. So, fun challenge, 365 day, do one fun thing every day is going on. Strong Day 39 today. My next challenge, I didn't look at the calendar yet today, but I will commit today to when my next challenge is going to start. I'm thinking March something, and I'm traveling in March, and that's the only reason I'm hemming and hawing on the date. I'm waiting for a real estate deal to close and my divorce, everything about my divorce to be finally, after a decade. And then I'm going on a trip to visit my mom in Texas. It's cold in Wisconsin, so even though I tend to bring the bad weather to Texas with me, it's kind of a standing joke in my family. I am going to go to Texas and enjoy a little bit milder weather and climate for a couple of weeks, I think, around my big birthday coming up. So that'll be fun. If I can help you in any way, if you have any thoughts or feelings or would love to be on the podcast because you've done a challenge before or you've participated in a challenge that really had a huge impact on you, or if you feel like you have overcome one of the biggest challenges of your life, hit me up in the comments below because I would love to quickly chat about that and have you on the podcast. Otherwise, look for me here tomorrow. I'll be back tomorrow. Got my aunt's funeral. One of my dad's youngest sister passed away this last week, and her funeral is Monday, but I've got Etta, my 4-year-old granddaughter, so I'm thinking I'll go to the visitation Sunday, and then we like to split up the family. It works out pretty well. There's a bunch of us, so we split up the family, and a couple of us usually go to the visitation day, and then a couple of us when they're further away. This is an hour and a half away, which isn't super far, but it's far enough that it makes a big dent in the day. So a couple of us will go on Sunday to the visitation, and then a couple of us will go Monday to the funeral and, the viewing before the funeral. Love my aunt, but I don't really like seeing dead people that much, right? It doesn't really feel that good to me. I like to remember people, how they lived and the impact that they had on my life and the experiences that I had with them, not seeing them laid out in their final moments, their final casket. That has always tweaked me a little bit. So go out, make it an absolutely fantastic day, And again, if I can help you in any way, hit me up in the comments below. Look for some interesting things coming from me in this super very near future. I've got some really fun projects in the works, and I can't wait to share them with you. All right, catch you tomorrow. Bye.